This weekend is the Elimination Chamber PLE pay-per-view from Rogers Centre / Skydome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. And doing a little research for the show, some things kind of completely went, I guess, forgotten about leading into this event because it's very synonymous when it comes to WWE, WWF, that Skydome has hosted WrestleMania 6. It's hosted WrestleMania 18. And there's two firsts that are technicalities when it comes to Elimination Chamber. First, this is the first ever WWE branded event at Rogers Centre for the fact that they were WWF before that. I think they turned to WWE right after WrestleMania 18. And also, it's the first event at quote-unquote Rogers Centre because all those other prior events were at when it was called Skydome, its previous name. But I was actually I forgot about, and once I remembered, I saw and was actually kind of dumbfounded a little bit there how many times the WWF has been to the Skydome. It's not just those two WrestleManias, but a ton of Raws in the 90s, 97, 98, and 99 took place from there, as well as a bunch of house show events. And once I got down that rabbit hole of realizing that a ton of events have been there before, it reminded me that actually the night before Fully Loaded 1999, Edge, in his hometown of Toronto, won the Intercontinental Championship at a house show. And the reason I remember that is because watching the Fully Loaded pay-per-view, they had to explain why Edge was coming out as the Intercontinental Champion. And they're like, last night in Skydome at a house show in Toronto, and they had like the still footage and like the photographs of him winning, and they kind of had to explain it to everyone, you know, because he was coming in as a challenger for the IC title, and he was coming out on the pay-per-view as champion. So they had him win the title the night before at the house show for some reason. I guess because it was in Toronto, but a ton of house shows, a ton of Monday Night Raws. So when it comes to this weekend's event, the Elimination Chamber, when it comes to where it fits on the attendance scale, it's not going to match either WrestleMania, but it's not going to be the lowest attended wrestling show because I think some of those house shows had a lower attendance, and it's also not going to be the highest because I think some of those house shows and Raws had higher attendance. Looking into the wrestling history at Skydome, I did see that I think what is probably the lowest attendance of all of these, holding down in 1993, WCW on their one and only trip to the Skydome had a house show there in 1993, headlined by Vader and Sting in front of about 3,800 fans. So I think that's going to stay as the lowest attended event in Skydome history.
And you wonder why they didn't go back.
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't go back. So, and to kind of give it some context, and some people might forget about this. So, in like 1996 or 1997, the Maple Leaf Gardens wasn't torn down, but it was essentially put, you know, we're done with Maple Leaf Gardens. And only the Maple Leafs, I think, played there until the Air Canada Centre, which is now known as Scotiabank Arena, opened up. So the Raptors, from their inception, actually played at Skydome. So they retrofitted Skydome to be the home of the Raptors until Air Canada Centre opened up. So Skydome was essentially used as an arena at that time. Maple Leaf Gardens was really only for the Maple Leafs and kind of, you know, set up and very old and very outdated. So essentially it was just used for the hockey team until they could get out of there. So because the Raptors already had the arena fit for Skydome, things like Monday Night Raw, when they went to Toronto, went to Skydome and not Maple Leaf Gardens until the arena was open. So they had it very similar. And I know, Brandon, you're like a basketball fan here in Syracuse, so you know, with the bleachers and those kind of things to retrofit a stadium for like basketball, they had that then. So when Raw went there, it was the same concept. It was like using the one side of the stadium with the pull-out bleachers, similar to what you saw with like the Alamo Dome with the Spurs back in the day. So it was essentially the arena. It was used for arena events. Now, obviously, it's used mostly as stadium events because they have a proper arena. But back then, like if Raw came to town, that was where they went. But moving on to this Elimination Chamber, in Toronto, Ontario at Skydome / Rogers Centre. You know, it's an interesting choice, I guess, to use this venue because, as we talked about, right, I thought, you know, a couple years ago that this venue was going to be used sooner rather than later for a Royal Rumble because they haven't been here in a while. It's too small now for WrestleManias. So I know summer is obviously baseball, so it's difficult to get in there. So I thought this would be a home for a Royal Rumble sooner than later. And they ended up picking it to be the home of Elimination Chamber, weirdly enough, following being in Money in the Bank just a few months earlier. And It's kind of strange, as we've talked about a few times on this show, the fact that they are returning to a city that they were just in less than like 10 months ago for a pay-per-view. And Toronto's a great city, but it's not like New York City where that is often returned to, on short notice. But, returning
it's a hot wrestling city, though.
I mean, it is a hot wrestling city, but if you look at WWE and you look at where pay-per-views have been held, I guess, over the last couple of years, there's very few repeats in there, right? So like LA hosted WrestleMania 39, and I know SoFi Stadium, right? But they haven't been, for a pay-per-view, they haven't been back to LA in 2 years, right? So there's just like they went to Pittsburgh for Payback, haven't been back to Pittsburgh. So there's these just different kind of places that it makes sense. They're just so hot, and be fair, they're hosting a lot less pay-per-views than they ever had before. Now they're hosting the traditional one a month, but if you remember going back to like 2012 to 2018, right? SmackDown had their own, Raw had their own, and we'll get into that a little bit when we talk about Elimination Chamber, because there was a year without an Elimination Chamber sandwiched in there, weirdly enough, kind of forgotten about. But with the fact that now, there is one pay-per-view. For example, December didn't have a pay-per-view. There wasn't an early January pay-per-view. There isn't a pay-per-view after Elimination Chamber. They're really sticking to, a more tighter schedule, less, this like Raw and a SmackDown pay-per-view. Because I remember, very often when Raw and SmackDown had their own pay-per-views, after Royal Rumble, there was another 2 pay-per-views. It'd be like Elimination Chamber and Payback, and Fastlane, and Roadblock. That kind of thing. But this is the last pay-per-view, and there isn't a Saturday Night's Main Event scheduled in the month of March leading up to WrestleMania. In fact, after this, they're in Buffalo for a Raw, and then they're in Madison Square Garden for what is going to be hopefully a good Raw and NXT. We'll talk about that as time goes on. But then they're in Europe for a month, pretty much. So that's going to be interesting coming up here for the month of March, where they're going to be in Europe for 3 Raws in a row and 3 SmackDowns in a row. So that's interesting. But Toronto, they're returning to Toronto, different venue, obviously, than Scotiabank. Why they were in Scotiabank for Money in the Bank and not, in Rogers Center and vice versa, I don't know. I don't know the lay of the land in that regard. But they're at Rogers Center, a place that's hosted WrestleMania. John Cena returns, actually not returns, but has his first ever match. He's never been there. He debuted with the company after WrestleMania 18. But The Rock does return to the scene of the crime, where he had his infamous match. I think it was 23 years ago this March against Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18.
Yep.
We'll start talking about, before we get into the matches themselves, we'll talk about The Rock, right, taking over this show, taking over WWE. And listen, I hearken back to this specific thing many times. It was a Super Bowl in 2022. The Rock was standing at midfield on the NFL logo, and he was introducing the teams. And I think it was after the coin flip, he came out and he did his signature stuff. And I remember saying to everybody I was watching the Super Bowl with that I cannot wait until him and Roman Reigns lock up right where he is standing right now at WrestleMania next year. And they're like, oh, he's already announced that? I was like, no, but it's already it's in the air, it's in the vibes, it's happening. That's why I think he's even here. It's to get the ball rolling. WrestleMania's in LA next year. This has been talked about. I know it's happening. And we fast forward to today, where I hope The Rock's plane is canceled or delayed and he doesn't make it to Toronto because I'm done. This is just very convoluted. This whole nonsense. He's 20 steps ahead. He said that before when after the Netflix show. No, I don't think you're 20 steps ahead. I think you messed up big time, and now we took a story that was so easy and so simple with both him and Cody, Cody and Roman Reigns, and turned it into this like, I'm not interested in this jumbled up nonsense. What is your take on The Rock back? I mean, is he going to face Cody Rhodes? Do you care if he faces Cody Rhodes? What's going on here?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, you just said it. It was a very confusing segment between him and Cody on SmackDown last week. Cody didn't really go into much detail this week. We had a little, stare down and a little conversation on Raw this week with him and Seth Rollins, which, to no surprise, Seth kind of, that conversation came up, where he stabbed the Shield. He joined Stephanie and Triple H, back years ago. I wasn't surprised by that, because when Seth Rollins came out that to me, I was like, he's gonna try to talk him out of doing the authority kind of thing, and learn from the mistakes, so he doesn't do it, so he doesn't jump on the rocks, train, so to speak, and give him what he wants and give him his soul, as they're saying right now. It's
whatever
really
that even means.
Weird. It's weird. To me, I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest with you. I'm with you. It's kind of like this whole thing with The Rock. Like, yeah, is it cool that, like, he's a mega superstar, in the movie business and just one of the most famous people on planet Earth, and he's he has a lot of sway, so to speak, in WWE, and he's here. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. But it's like, we need more from you. Like,
it seems a lot like the Goldberg stuff, when Goldberg kept coming back for no reason, just to put himself in a match, and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. And
he just puts himself over, is what he does.
And the annoying thing is, and I said this, when he came out on SmackDown, right? If we can erase a moment of time, we can erase The Rock showing up at Netflix, the debut in LA for Raw on Netflix. If we just erase that, if he just doesn't show up, if he's just not there, or maybe he's there but he does what The Undertaker did, where he comes out and with Rhea Ripley or something, or he comes out and he just does the, hey, we're on Netflix, this is cool, and does nothing else, maybe just similar to the WrestleMania announcement, does that and then leaves. But if we erase the whole him and Cody backstage and him pointing to Cody in the crowd, we erase the whole putting the Ulafala on Roman Reigns after the match, we erase all of the wrestling stuff that he got involved. If we erase that, then all he needs to do is show up on SmackDown, right, or show up at Elimination Chamber, or show up anywhere. And if it's Cody Rhodes in the ring or if it's Roman Reigns in the ring, he just shows up like he did at Bad Blood, points to the WrestleMania sign, points to who's ever in the ring, because it could be Cody or Roman. It works for both. And then walks away, and you're like, there it is. That's the whole thing. Because, again, that's where we left WrestleMania last year. The night after WrestleMania, he came out and told Cody Rhodes he'd be back. Bad Blood, he came back. He didn't say anything. He just pointed. He left. So that's, like, so simple. This story is so simple, right? He left. He comes back. He said he was coming. He's coming back for Cody. He'll see you down the line. He comes out on SmackDown, points at the sign, points at Cody. We're done. But because he did the Netflix thing where he decided to just literally throw all that out the window and just be like, we're friends with Cody, and just kill that story dead in its tracks. Now he is trying to backtrack. They're like, hey, we wanted you to work with Cody. Why did you go out there and take shots with him in the back? Like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I got to explain that. I got to be like, we're friends, but we're business partners, and I want his soul.
It's a weird thing. I'll just say this. I'm going to go on the record now, and I know, we still got, we got some time before WrestleMania coming up. I don't think The Rock is going to be in a match at WrestleMania. I think the main event will be, I think it's going to be Cody. I think it's going to be CM Punk, and I think Roman Reigns will be in there as well, in there as well as a triple threat. That's my prediction.
And with The Rock, I don't know if you saw the press conference after SmackDown, where he then got, once again, back out of character, specifically referring to the Final Boss as a character during the whole press conference. And they even said something about having a match with Cody. And he said, well, it doesn't necessarily, that's the cool part about this character. It doesn't have to be a match. It may never be a match. So, kind of alluding to that there wasn't going to be a match. It's so I don't know if he just wants to be Paul Heyman to Cody Rhodes. And again, too, it's so asinine because Cody Rhodes is not Sami Zayn. Cody Rhodes is not Kevin Owens, right? Those people don't have championships and would like championships and would sell their soul. You're literally going to Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and saying, I know you have $1 billion, but if you sell your soul to me, you can have $1.1 billion. Because Cody Rhodes is the champion. And yes, he isn't as famous as The Rock, but I mean, you've got it all. He's got everything you'd really want. He's going to sell his soul to The Rock for a few more Twitter followers. He said that, you got millions, but I have almost $1 billion. When you get to that level, who cares? When I win the lottery and it's $400 million, I'm not going to be like, I wish it was $500 million. I mean, that's just me though, right? But that you're not selling, if you appeal to Sami Zayn like this or Kevin Owens, who really are trying to get to that status, or CM Punk back in the day when he felt he wasn't the face of the company and really wanted to be, but you're going to the face of the company, the champion, the current the current flag bearer for WWE, and you're going to ask him to sell his soul, which we don't know what that means, for a little bit more. And what a little bit more is what? Like, is it more Twitter followers?
Ideally, like the way The Rock can save this, and I don't know how they would do it at this point, is they would have to switch gears and, tie it back to the bloodline in some way, shape, or form. Yeah, he's the final boss, but maybe there's some sort of like Roman Reigns acknowledged The Rock as the real tribal chief, and like something like that would be cool. I just don't know if there's a way.
Again, you would if he didn't show up on Netflix, he didn't put the Ulafal on Roman Reigns. He could show up on SmackDown and point at Roman Reigns, point at the sign, and we could have that Rock and Roman match finally, like we always wanted.
Let me ask you this: do you think The Rock will have a match at WrestleMania this year?
I'm going to say no, but he will definitely be there and involved in some way.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I just don't think he has a match.
Moving on to the card itself, that's essentially overshadowed by The Rock's appearance because he can't keep himself out of this. And I think either way, I don't think he's necessarily selling any tickets because who the hell even knows what he's doing there. But there are some good matches. There's only 4, which is strange because while the Royal Rumble had only 4 matches, Survivor Series had 5. And last year's Elimination Chamber did have more matches than this as well. The reason I say that is because Elimination Chamber matches aren't as long as Royal Rumbles. So, I really feel like this card could use a 5th match, because even I look at like Survivor Series, how they have the 2 War Games, which are similar to this in the length of time and the amount of people that are involved. And there's 5 matches on the War Games cards. So I really feel like there could be a.
Think of it this way. You mentioned that 5th match, 5th segment, so to speak.
Yes.
I think that 5th match.
The Rock and Cody are really going to drag it out, huh?
That's what it's going to be. You're going to have the 4 matches plus that 5th segment, which is Cody. Cody, and what is he going to do? Will he accept giving his soul to The Rock and all that? Here's what I'll say about really quick before we break it down. My prediction for the actual card order, I have it this way. I have it. The women's Elimination Chamber starts the show. I think Sami and Kevin are going to be the second match. I think Cody and The Rock will have their segment after that. And then from there, you're going to have the tag match between Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus versus Nia and Candice. And then they'll finish it with the men's chamber. Am I far off on that, or do you think that's pretty close?
No, I know that. I think that seems very right. But I also think, too, they could end it with the Rock and Cody segment. I could see that happening well. I think they could. I mean, The Rock is a huge name. And also, too, I feel like we don't want to go down the same path we have all the time where, like, the women are always the first. And I know sometimes they switch it up. And I think there was 2020, the women's match was the main event. I just feel like when you have the women open up on the Royal Rumble, you got to try to switch it up. Like, they opened up at War Games and they opened up at the Royal Rumble. So I'm just wondering if maybe they, just to keep things equal, maybe change it up a little bit. Because they have done that. The men's match, like Royal Rumble, has kicked the show off before we've seen and stuff. So if the men's match kicks off the show, I think we're going off the show with Rock and Cody.
So you think? So we'll get to who we think's going to win these matches in a second. So I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think so? The men's Elimination Chamber will finish it, but after the match is over, there'll be some sort of interaction, maybe between the winner of that match, Cody and The Rock, somewhere, maybe.
What I'll say is, if the men's match starts the show, the Rock segment is the main event. Okay. If the women start the show, then I'm guessing the men's chamber is the main event. Not 100%, but that's where I believe.
You don't think maybe they save it towards the end, like at the end where after like Cody comes out to congratulate or face to face the winner of the chamber, maybe?
I mean, it could be, like I said, I would say I'm 99.9% sure that if the men start the show, Rock's finishing the show. Okay. And I'm like 80% sure that if the women's match starts the show, then The Rock is ending the show. If the men end the show and then Rock's after that, it's like men plus men segment, then that I could see that happening too. I'm not saying that couldn't. I'm just more certain that The Rock is ending the show if we start off with the men's chamber. I would say that much. Now, when it comes to let's start off with the women's chamber. This is, again, who faces Rhea Ripley, and this is who faces Rhea Ripley after she's got her title defense this Monday on Raw against Io Sky, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then whoever wins that is going to face the winner of this chamber, right? Because it's Charlotte versus Tiffany, so we already got that set. Yeah. And really, I guess this could go any way. I mean, we've already seen Liv Morgan a ton. Bailey, we just saw her recently in the main event. I'm guessing maybe, uh, could we say Roxanne? Because I'm guessing Bianca and Naomi are going to do something where they stay together, whether that's with Jade Cargill coming up in the future. I just feel we already seen the Liv Morgan thing with Rhea Ripley.
You know where I go? I go Alexa Bliss.
You go Alexa Bliss already? You shoot her right to the top against Rhea Ripley?
I do. You know what? The fans, she got a great pop at the Rumble. She's been long overdue. She looks ready. I mean, they've already put her on TV a little bit. I would like to see Alexa Bliss. And
that is such a change of size, man. Alexa Bliss. It reminds me of when Alexa Bliss took on Nia Jax at one year WrestleMania. With Alexa Bliss, who's like 5 foot even, going up against Rhea Ripley, who is not Nia Jax in that kind of stature, but she's Nia Jax.
I mean, it would be the same thing if Roxanne did it, because Roxanne's like 5 feet tall as well. Here's the thing. To be fair, like the women like Rhea Ripley, the Raquel, Rodriguez, Nia Jax, like those type of imposing figures are always going to be the bigger women in the division, because a lot of these superstars are like a Roxanne or like Alexa, which, let's be honest, are 5 feet tall.
And Liv Morgan's also like 5 feet tall, but they somehow found a way to make that interesting, Rhea versus Liv. I mean, obviously Liv has the help of Dom, and that's kind of how that worked out.
Well, she has the help of Raquel, too.
Which is also true, yes. And Liv Morgan and Raquel, now following Raw, are the women's tag team champions again. So I'm guessing maybe because they're champions of another kind, maybe you keep them out, separate in case, their tag team championship match is on the WrestleMania card.
So do you think it comes down to either Alexa or Roxanne? Is that what you're thinking?
I'm thinking, right, because we've seen a lot with Bailey. But, Bailey and Roxanne had that segment on Raw, where they're talking about now versus yesterday, who's now, who's the past, who's the current, who's the future, that kind of thing.
I'll say Alexa Bliss is my pick for that.
So Alexa Bliss, yeah, because then I could see Bailey versus Roxanne with something going forward. And again, with Bianca and Naomi, I mean, right now they're kind of a team, and I just
something's got to happen there with Jade, with them and Jade between now and Mania, right?
Yes, and I think the whole, camera showing Liv and Raquel, I think that's just a swerve. I think it's Bianca. I think it's going to be Bianca when we're all said and done, right? But we'll get there eventually. I don't know what's taking so long. It's taking a minute to get to that point. One match, I think that we already know the winner, and this is why I think this card maybe needs more than 4 matches, because if it was 4 matches of like length, like we saw at Royal Rumble with like the championship match, which was long, and then the 2 out of 3 falls match, this match isn't going to be long. This match is going to fit into any pay-per-view card. It's going to be 8 minutes long, probably total when we're all said and done. And that's Stephanie Stratton and Trish Stratus versus Nia Jax and Candice LeRae. This is going to be a quick one. This is going to be like, I don't want to say it, but like what we're used to seeing women's matches 10 years ago in regard to like just entertainment. It's there for Trish Stratus to get a pop in front of the Toronto crowd for the first time.
I'm going to say this
since WrestleMania.
TS squared will win.
Yes, I don't think it's going to be long either. This reminds me, remember Trish Stratus when she came back? People forget SummerSlam 2019, right? Then she wasn't she against, was it like Becky Lynch? Didn't she fight Becky Lynch or Charlotte Flair at that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's this one's not even that though, because it's not a championship match. It's a tag team match. It's a tag team match just to be special attraction. One match I think that will be the equivalent of a main, like what we saw Kevin Owens versus Cody at Royal Rumble, is going to be Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens. This is going to be a 20 to 30 minute match. This is going to be interesting. I can't wait to see it. This should be entertaining. This should be fun. This is going to be your pseudo main event here. Who do you see coming out on top of this?
Oh man, this is tough. If I had to pick, and I think the winner here is really the fans, because it's going to be a great match. But if I gotta choose, I gotta go with Sammy. I think Sammy pulls it out. I feel like Sammy's due for a big win here. I think that's where I'm gonna go. But again, I wouldn't be surprised, because if Kevin Owens wins, that's cool too. I'm just excited as a fan, because this is the type of match that the real winner is all of us wrestling fans.
Should be a good match. It's in Canada. Last time the Elimination Chamber was in Canada was in Montreal when Sami Zayn was facing Roman Reigns for the championship. Kevin Owens came out at the end, when the match was over, but that's when they were friends and leading to their WrestleMania time together and winning the tag belts. So here we are again. It's the Canada main event, if you will. Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens, 2 guys who spent a lot of time. Their first matches, I'm going to guess, right, at Rogers Centre in front of a crowd of that size in Canada. A lot of people forget the stadiums in Canada are not like the stadiums in the United States because they don't have NFL teams and things of that nature there. They have CFL, and CFL stadiums run you around 30,000 and under, necessarily. The two largest stadiums in Canada are BC Place in Vancouver, which can maxes out at 50,000, and Rogers Centre, which used to max out, as we've seen at WrestleMania, 65,000, but with renovations is come down a long way, and for a sellout Blue Jays game is in the mid 40s. 45,000 would be a World Series sellout kind of crowd now. Yeah. This used to be the largest stadium in all of Canada. Right now, I think it's the second largest behind BC Place. Very close, though. Neither of them are of size that I think would meet WrestleMania standards of the 60, 70, 80,000 range. So, yes, I can tell you that these two guys have never wrestled in front of this large of a crowd in Canada before. They wrestled a lot in Canada, but at the second largest, and I guess you could say that Olympic Stadium in Montreal is similar, but that's a stadium that no one uses anymore, and I don't know how it hasn't got to the Wrecking Ball yet. I don't know what the plans are. That's just a abandoned relic sitting up there in Montreal. Yeah. But yeah, this is the biggest stage you can have, I guess, in the country of Canada, is in the biggest city, in the biggest stadium, in the biggest city. So it should be a good match. I'm excited to see it. And as we move on to the men's chamber, John Cena if Raw comes back to Toronto before year's out, you won't see John Cena because he is saying this is his last time ever in Toronto. And it's kind of strange because it was in Toronto at Money in the Bank that he announced exactly what he's currently doing. And that's this farewell tour. He said, my next time to Toronto will be my last time, and they're advertising it as his last time in Toronto. So it's John Cena, CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, Logan Paul, Damian Priest, and Seth Rollins. I think it's a pretty loaded card. The winner will face Cody Rhodes, apparently, at WrestleMania. We'll find out, obviously, as time goes on. Who is your pick to win the Chamber? And I guess another question is, do you think an early prediction, we get a one-on-one match with Cody Rhodes and this person at WrestleMania?
I already tipped my hand. I mentioned the triple threat, earlier in the episode, so I gotta stick to my guns on this. I think it's gonna be the winner of this particular match. It's gonna be a great match, by the way. It's gonna be a lot of fun. You mentioned it. It's a loaded card. I think Logan Paul's gonna do some crazy spot. I really have a feeling there. Cena's gonna do some cool things because it's John Cena. It'll be fun. Seth will have his moment. Everybody's gonna get their stuff. And Drew, Damian. But at the end of the day, CM Punk is going to win, and CM Punk is going to do what he's always wanted to do, and that's headline WrestleMania. And again, to answer the second part of the question, I alluded to it earlier. It's going to be a triple threat, I think. I think it's going to be CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, and the Tribal Chief, the OTC, Roman Reigns.
So one kind of a unique thing about this card as we end out, and I will say my prediction, you think it's going to be Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns? Is that what I heard?
No, it's going to be CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Cody at Mania for the main event.
So you think CM Punk's winning the Chamber? Gotcha.
I do. Yep.
And you know what's interesting about this? Before I give my prediction, CM Punk and John Cena, back together in a match with each other. I mean, remember 2011, the big summer of Punk, the two championships, Cena's a champion, Punk left the company with the championship, the pipe bomb, that all happened during the CM Punk John Cena story. Cena's the Yankees, he used to call him, you know what I mean? He used to be the underdog, but he's become the Yankees. So it's interesting to see them back in the ring for the first time together in that regard, against each other. I'm going to guess, it's CM Punk. I'm hoping it's, CM Punk or John Cena, but it could be Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins, the whole feud with Cody Rhodes, a couple of years ago, the WrestleMania match leading to Seth Rollins being on Cody's side last year at WrestleMania. So you know what? I'm actually going to go Seth Rollins. I'm guessing we're getting Seth Rollins, and I'm thinking CM Punk versus John Cena at WrestleMania. How about that for a throwback?
That'd be interesting.
Yes, John Cena, CM Punk, a throwback to the 2011 Summer of Punk days, the Red Sox versus, Yankee whole thing where CM Punk's the real underdog and John Cena's the establishment, and maybe do that, 14, 15 years later?
It's funny you mentioned that, too, with CM Punk saying John Cena's the Yankees when John Cena's from near Boston and what is it,
Well, that's the thing.
West
'Cause he used to
Newbury,
say
Massachusetts.
the gimmick was that John Cena was always the underdog. He liked the Yankees. He liked the Red Sox and hated the Yankees. But CM Punk called him out and said, "You have become what you've hated. You are now the Yankees. You are now the flagship. You are now the establishment. I, CM Punk, I'm the Red Sox. I'm what you used to say you were. I'm the one who's fighting for respect."
Stay on brand and say he's the Cubs.
I mean, they're always fighting for respect too, you know what I mean, in that regard. But one final thing about this pay-per-view, which is strange, and you know, it's 4 matches. No championship matches are on this card. No Intercontinental title, no U.S. title, no women's tag team titles, none of that stuff. This is the first WWE pay-per-view event / PLE, not counting like Beast of the East in Tokyo, like actual what you would consider a pay-per-view, right? Nothing weird, no WWE Network exclusive 1 hour special after SmackDown or something. Pay-per-view event. This is the first pay-per-view for WWE / WWF without a championship match on the card since In Your House 9 International Incident on July 21st, 1996 in, of all countries, Canada and Vancouver. It was a 5-match card that was main evented by the British Bulldog, Owen Hart, and Vader in a 6-man tag against Ahmad Johnson, Shawn Michaels, and Psycho Sid. The Undertaker took on Goldust in a non-title match, Stone Cold against Mark Marrow in a non-title match, Mankind versus Henry Godwinn in a non-title match, and the Body Donnas against Smoking Guns in a non-title match. So a lot of non-title matches there. And I think Shawn Michaels was the WWF champion. He didn't defend the title, obviously, in a 6-man tag. So this is the first pay-per-view in 1996, right? That is 29 years ago. The first WWF pay-per-view in 29 years where no championship is being defended or is on the line. That's crazy because, we've seen War Games and Royal Rumble where, the headlines aren't, or like Money in the Bank, Bloodline Civil War. But somewhere on that card was like the IC belt or the US belt or the tag team belts or one of those. And I thought, maybe we'd even get that Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky match that's happening at Raw on Monday. Maybe they'd slide that onto this card. But no. So as of right now, with these 4 matches that are announced, and I imagine no more will be announced because I follow WWE pretty closely like you do, and they don't really pull anything out last minute, right? The cards are the cards. At this point we kind of know, and they never really do anything kind of last minute in that sense of like making a match like on SmackDown the night before. So with this card being this card, this will be the first pay-per-view without a championship match in 29 years. And since the last time a pay-per-view has been in Canada as well. And if you want to, so I don't know the gap of time between American pay-per-views. I know like Survivor Series 1990 was the last pay-per-view prior to that. Survivor Series, I think 1993 was the last pay-per-view prior to that didn't have a championship match on the card. So next time that America has a pay-per-view without a championship on the card, I think it's like Survivor Series 1990 or 1993. We'll have to harken back to as the last time that happened. So weirdly enough, 2 Canada pay-per-views, no championships on the line, but I'm going to say a lot more is at stake in this pay-per-view because the Elimination Chamber does offer something that's not a championship, but pretty darn close. And I think it probably offers something more than Camp Cornette did versus the People's Posse in a 6-man tag for your main event back in 1996.